Alrighty, looks like we are ready to go. Hopefully everyone can hear me, and hello everyone, welcome to Spyro Reignited Trilogy. Thank you all for joining. Pleasure to be here, and I hope that y'all have fun. We are going to start the timer as soon as I hit X to select this new game. So as long as the timer is ready, I'll give you a countdown here. We're going to start in 3, 2, 1, go. Welcome, welcome. If you've never seen this game before, this is Spyro the Dragon. It's the new PS4 version that is a complete remaster of the original PlayStation 1. Highly recommend that you try to check it out if it interests you. It's actually really fun to play. They did a really great job with it. But this is going to be any percent NBS. NBS stands for No Balloonist Skip. So essentially, this is a glitchless category, is what that means. There are some other categories where you can skip through the worlds, you know, much faster than you're intended to be able to, but we're not going to be able to do that. So instead, we are going to finish the game as intended. We're going to get to the final boss, whose name is Nasty Nork. And in order to do that, we are going to have to pick up a certain number of gems and dragons and dragon eggs according to what the balloonists who take us between the worlds are going to want. And we'll talk about that more, you know, sort of as we get going. But for right now, this is the first world that we're in, the home world Artisans. It's kind of the simplest world. It has the lowest value gems. So we're just going to be running through and picking up just a bunch of collectibles because this is a collectathon. That's kind of, you know, the heart of the game. And unlike the original Spyro, every single one of these dragons is unique. A lot of effort went into making them. They all, you know, look different and sound different, and it's fantastic. Unfortunately, we're not going to get too much time to see them. But I really can't praise this game enough. I love it quite a lot. I've got some sunglasses on Spyro just because I think he looks pretty cool when he's like that. I usually run any percent with sunglasses. You don't have too much of a chance to do that in some of the glitched categories. They come off on their own. But it's just a little start menu cheat code, so you too can wear sunglasses if you choose to play Spyro. So as we're going through here, the goal that I'm working toward right now is 10 dragons. We need to free 10 dragons from Crystal, because when we talk to the balloonist who's kind of hanging out at the end of this world, he's going to be like, hey, I'm not feeling great about what's happening in the dragon realms. I want you to free 10 of these dragons before I take you anywhere. So that's what we need to do in order to leave this world, and so we're going basically to the 10 easiest dragons to get to, and we'll be picking up gems along the way because we will need gems later on. Nils here is a handy little fellow. He spawns a hitbox in midair after he leaves, and we can use that to hop all the way up to this platform that normally is at the very end of the level. And that lets us skip essentially the entire thing. He's the only dragon that does that. So there are two different ways that we can leave levels. You just saw me leave via the guidebook, so we're not going to come out right in front of the portal that we entered. We're going to come out where the balloonist would take me if I said, hey, can you take me to Artisan's World? That just happens to be closer to where we want to be next, and that's why we're doing it this way. But most of the time you'll see me exit levels just by hitting exit level in the start menu, and that will take me out in front of where we entered. So it's kind of, you know, just a little bit of strategic planning about where we want to be standing when we come out.
Are you ready to go?
So we got those 10 dragons, the balloonist is happy, and now he's willing to take me to the next place, which is Peacekeepers. And as we go through these worlds, the gem counts are going to get bigger. If you've never played Spyro, the red gems are worth 1, the green gems are worth 2, blue is for 5, yellow is for 10, and purple is for 25. So we didn't spend too much time in this first world because it's got a lot of reds and greens, a lot of 1s and 2s. We can make a lot more progress if we wait to collect gems until later worlds. So this is when we'll start seeing a lot more 5s, a lot more 10s. And the reason that we want gems is because this balloonist at the end of this world, excuse you, that was not very kind. The balloonist at the end of this world is going to say, hey, I'm not going to take you anywhere unless you have 1,200 gems. And so we've been working toward that a little bit, and we're going to finish off that requirement while we're here. By the time this run is over, we're going to want to have 6,000 gems, 50 dragons, and 5 dragon eggs. That's going to sort of be the cumulative what every balloonist needs. This is our first 10 gems, so we're starting to work up toward a little bit better quality of gems. So why are the dragons trapped in crystal, right? According to the story of this game, you know, Spyro is basically the only little dragon, the only, like, kid who's around. And all the adult dragons were kind of hanging out, having a TV interview. And one of them called Nasty Nork, the big bad guy, ugly. And he wasn't a big fan of that, which, I mean, that's fair. Don't really like being called ugly, right? And so he used his magic staff and turned all of the dragons into crystal, except for Spyro, presumably because he's tiny and he couldn't hit him. So now Spyro has to go through, save all his friends, collect all these gems, which Nasty scattered all over the place. And Nasty turned some of the gems into enemies, and so that's why we're charging into enemies, getting those gems back. And so the run will end when we confront Nasty Nork in his own homeworld and flame him for the second time, because he takes 2 flames, which is kind of sad, because there is another boss that we do have to fight who takes 3 flames. So Nasty isn't kind of even the top dog. We also do have the option in this Reignited version to kind of do these fun, you know, things during these loading screens. Just a nice little touch that they added. Got a kind of tough little trick here. Gonna try to cheese our way around that hill. It did work. There's that really good 25 gem back there. That's why we want to go back there. The normal way to reach that is by going all the way up onto this cliff over here. And we don't actually need to go there, so if we can avoid doing that entire section just to get the 25, it's totally worth it. But it does require that kind of really precise jump. Well. Alright, so we're going to grab that thief. He's the first of the dragon eggs that you're going to see. He is very fast, and so we want to make sure that we try to sneak up on him, which is what we did there. The other thing is that thieves are always best gotten when you're in midair, or in other words, when you're falling down, because the downward momentum, for some reason, gets the game to skip the cutscene of giving you the egg. So if we just stood on the ground and flamed the thief, we would have to watch a cutscene, but because we hit him when we were going down, it's skipped. So we're kind of preemptively collecting those dragon eggs for the next world, which is what's going to require them. There are some thieves that are very hard to catch. All of them are really fast. They're actually a lot faster than they were in the PlayStation 1 version. So we definitely want to just be getting the ones that are super easy. And this will be the first flight level. Any percent NVS is essentially, besides the 100% category, is the only category that does flight levels. Flight levels are literally just flying obstacle courses. Each one is worth 300 gems, and if you do them well, you can do them in basically about a minute, or a little less depending on which one you're talking about. So you're going to be hard-pressed to get 300 gems in a minute anywhere else, which is why we do these. If you crash into the water, though, you have to start over. So it's this nice little interplay between going fast and not, you know, losing a life and having to start over. The closer you are to the water, the faster you go, so that incentivizes being risky. And these flight levels are the most competitive, I would say, categories of runs in Reignited, at least on console. It can take a couple months at this point to shave the time down sufficiently to bot somebody. And I'm going to flame in such a way that I run into that lighthouse. That'll cut short the animation of Spyro flying into the air. So onward we go. You can see I have a blue Sparks now, and now I have a yellow. I just ran into a fodder animal. He popped out a butterfly that Sparks, my little dragonfly friend here, is going to launch. And whenever he eats a butterfly, he gets healed. Yellow is his maximum. If I get hit, he'll turn blue. If I get hit again, he'll turn green. And if I get hit one more time after that, he'll go away. If I don't have Sparks and I get hit again, I'll lose a life and have to start either back at a dragon or back at the beginning of the world. So we definitely want to keep Sparks healthy, not only because he's our health bar, but because he also helps me pick up gems. If Sparks is around, I don't have to pick up gems by directly standing on them. I can just kind of run past. And that is super, super helpful. It can really, really slow down the run to lose Sparks and have to pick up gems on your own. So we definitely want to be keeping Sparks healthy. But even when Sparks is completely healthy at yellow, I am going to be occasionally running into these little animals and popping the butterflies. Because later on, we're going to encounter a very challenging home world called Beastmakers. It's super common to take hits in that world without meaning to. And every 10 fodder animals that we pop for a butterfly is going to create an extra life butterfly. And that extra life will heal Sparks no matter how injured he is. He can be completely gone, and he'll come all the way back to yellow. So we want that extra life to pop in Beastmakers when we probably need that full heal. So we're trying to set that, you know, in our sights for the future. And you can see we almost have that 1200 gems that we're going to need. The balloonist hasn't told us that we need it yet, but you know. He will. And I'm going to hop through enemies when I flame them in order to meet their gem in the air so that I don't have to wait for it to fall to the ground. Sparks won't grab it until it's touched the ground, so if we defeat an enemy and the gem is still in the air, we're going to need to gather it ourselves, or else we're going to have to wait. Now because I am feeling cheeky, I'm gonna try something new that I just learned about, that was just kind of recently discovered. Normally we would run up the stairs here, but yeah, instead we're just gonna climb right along that wall that you're not supposed to be able to climb. We didn't know until recently that that wall actually had collision, so we can skip the entire staircase. Unfortunately, we do also skip a couple gems in doing that we'll have to make up later, but... So here we're just going to grab Magnus, the last dragon in this world that we're going to get. And off we go. We got that 1200 gems that he needs. So we're moving on to Magic Crafters. To leave Magic Crafters, we're going to need those 5 dragon eggs, so we'll have to pick up the ones that we're missing. And as we chill here in between worlds, don't forget that this entire marathon is supporting Autism Research, so get those donations in and, you know, help some people who could really use it. The glasses are a mood. I love running Spyro with glasses. He's just such a rock star. To be fair, there is in the credits, which unfortunately we're not gonna get to watch, there is a little picture of Spyro playing, like in a rock band. And I think that he looks pretty cool doing it. So Magic Crafters here is all about these wizards, all about cycles. These wizards are going to be manipulating the environment, and we need to work around that. So one thing that's important to understand is that all of these categories are timed on in-game time. That's the time that appears when I open the guidebook and sort of, you know, bring up the in-game menu. Not real time. So we want to do everything we can to reduce the in-game time of our runs. The good news is that when we play a dragon, in-game time stops, but the rest of the world kind of keeps happening. So that's going to be helpful for cycles, because the cycles are going to keep going on in the background while the dragon is playing, but the timer is going to be stopped. So up ahead here, I'm actually going to let a dragon play for a little bit to get the cycles in the background to be more favorable to me and where I want to go.
Do we have time for a quick donation?
You bet.
Okay then. So we have a $20.91 donation from CJ from Steep Dogs. Kalesi, Mother of Dragons, Tamer of Lizards and Snakes. The Yokozuna of the Spyro world. Shout out to Sable, her dragons and her rocks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the shout out and I appreciate the support to a great cause. Oh, that guy being a little sneaky over there. For a lot of these chests that have, you know, these rockets in them, you can flame them and then wait for the rockets to go off, and it looks kind of cool. It's fireworks, you know. But that takes a long time. So instead we are just going to run Spyro's face directly into them, and they'll explode and I'll take a little bit of damage, but I'll also get the gem immediately. And since I have blue sparks, I can afford to take another hit, so I'm actually going to do that again to make sure that we get a 5 over here. Or, you know what? Let's keep the blue sparks. That's actually the second time in a row that I have not been able to get that chest to go off. Whatever, it's just a 5. We'll get it later. So again, hitting that thief while we're in the air and going downwards to skip his cutscene. And now we only need one more egg in order to leave this world. That being said, we're still going to do the majority of the world, because later on the balloonist is going to ask for a ton of gems. So even though we have the dragon eggs, we do want to hang around for a little bit. And I know that these loading screens are a little bit kind of insane, right? They're pretty long for a newer game. To put it in perspective, I am playing on a PS4 Pro with an SSD. So this is the fastest loading screens you can get on console. They are much faster on PC. So if you're interested in Spyro and the loading screens are kind of putting you off, try the PC version. So you can see the worlds just keep getting better, right? We just got... This entire room is just filled with 10s and 25s. Which is why we didn't really hang around in Artisans too much. Compared to, you know, the gems that we just got. We got more gems in that little room than we did in an entire world in Artisans, so... It's worth it not to really hang around too much. You saw that I charged through 2 of those fireworks chests. When you have a supercharge, when you follow those ramps with the arrows, you become invincible. So I used that to my advantage to, you know, take out 2 of those chests without having to take damage. And we will certainly be doing some supercharged shenanigans later. I would argue that some of the hardest tricks in the run are supercharge based. So we are going to take an intentional life loss in Wizard Peak, because dragons are save points. So I'm going to grab myself the final egg that I need, and then I will just basically hop off the cliff because it will take me back to the dragon save point. You green man. And that will be faster than gliding back on my own. Alright, so we'll checkpoint there with that dragon. Again, supercharges make you invincible, so you can charge through those chests that you normally would not be able to, like these. Downward momentum to get that thief so that we don't get the cutscene, and then off the cliff we go. And the reason we want to go back to this dragon is because we want to pick up the supercharge again. Because right around the corner here, bonk, I can just grab this one, is a chest with a 25 in it. Definitely don't want to miss that. Sparks being a little lazy here, not getting that 25, that's okay. So we've got the dragon eggs that we need, we're ready to leave, but we do still have quite a lot of good gem opportunities in this world, so we're going to hang around for a little bit. We've got another flight level, so that's another 300 gems. This time we should be able to get that in under a minute. This one's a little bit shorter if we can do it well. The problem with this one, though, is that the game kind of makes an odd choice that when obstacles explode, the pieces of them stay around for a while and you can like run into them and it kills your momentum. So sometimes this arch that I'm going to go through is going to explode in such a way but I can't get around it, and it's going to push me right down into the water. We'll see what happens. Hopefully that doesn't happen, because everything's kind of in a real good spot the first time that you enter here. But thankfully we made it right through. Alright, I missed that plane. I should be able to meet it again later. So we are just going to keep going. I don't know how I missed that plane. Spyro's fire can sometimes be a little bit wonky, but you know. Alright, so let's keep an eye out. There he is. Our little airplane man here. Just gonna be sure that I get him before he flies away. You know, not the routing that we would normally take, but it's a good little backup compared to having to completely restart the level just because we missed him. And again, try to run into that wall to cut that timer short. If we didn't run into a wall or an obstacle when we finish up a flight level, Spyro would basically just do like a twirly whirl in the air for a little while. And I mean, that takes time, so we don't really want to do that, even though he is very cute. Alright, so we're heading into this world's boss, Blowhard. He, I would argue, is one of the two hardest bosses in the game, and you know, Spyro the Dragon, not really Dark Souls, not really known for its really hard bosses, so the fact that this guy often gives runners trouble is kind of a testament to how tough he can actually be. And the reason, actually, is that a lot of the enemies in his level are difficult to deal with. They're all these green wizards who have this like homing lightning. It can hit you from basically anywhere. They charge up their attacks from a long ways away. They will seek you out and just wreck your day. But thankfully they seem to be in a very good position for this run. Now Blowhard himself, who we just hit, is also kind of, you know, a little bit of a troll. You have to hit him to get him to move on. Sometimes when he moves on, he'll bump into you and conveniently knock you off a cliff or into the water. And you have to hit him multiple times. If you're not fast enough, he'll zap you with some lightning. And I do need to make sure that I reserve enough sparks to charge into one of those fireworks chests. If I don't do that, we're going to have a long cycle on Blowhard where he flies up into the air, and I have to just wait for him. So thankfully we were able to do that. So now he won't be able to get away. Not gonna lie, that Blowhard was pretty decent. That was pretty decent. Beautiful. The number that we want to leave Magic Crafters with is 3230 exactly, and we managed exactly that.
Would you like to go?
That means that choosing to skip those stairs in Ice Cavern, the previous world, did not really impact, you know, our gem count. And so we're not behind. We are right on track. So that balloonist needed 5 dragon eggs. We're done with that. We don't need to worry about egg thieves anymore. Beastmakers is going to say, hey, I want 50 dragons before I let you go. So that's going to kind of be our focus. But we also really need to ramp up our gem collection because the balloonist after this is going to ask for 6,000. And we are, you know, barely halfway there. So we have a lot of work to do still. As the worlds continue, the levels inside each world get longer. So that's good, you know, lots more opportunities for gems. Also lots more opportunities to see lots of harder enemies. Terrace Village is a little bit cycle-based. We don't particularly need to concern ourselves with the cycle too much, because we're probably going to take damage from it anyway. It's better to take damage and just get through it than it is to wait for a good cycle. Also, you may have seen that at the beginning of this level I hit one of those chickens, even though I did not need the sparks. Again, that was to try to get closer to that extra life butterfly that's going to pop at the 10th spotter. Because we're in Beastmakers now, this is a challenging world where we're taking a lot of damage, and that extra life butterfly is going to heal me back to full. So hopefully that'll pop out at a time when I really need it. So you can see I currently do not have sparks. I am going to wait for this cycle because we're right in front of a dragon and I don't want to have to run through this again. I don't currently have sparks, so I do need to walk over these gems myself. Takes a long time, which is why I am just going to go and grab this guy. So you can see, it's super easy to take damage in this world, and that's why we're doing this whole butterfly thing. You know, we're trying to get this extra life ready to go. Because this is certainly not going to be the only level where we're taking damage. The enemies in this world are just very challenging. A lot of them have, you know, hitboxes that can hit you from very far away. Or they themselves, you know, kind of swivel and make it hard to hit them. If I wanted to, in this upcoming flight level, which is just going to be down this well, I could just immediately crash. And that would bring me back up to yellow sparks. I'm not going to do that because we do have green, and green should be sufficient. But it is an option if you know, come into this and you have no sparks at all. It's faster to crash than it is to try to build your sparks back up to yellow. Wild Flight is my personal favorite flight level. I think it's a lot of people's least favorite because it's probably the most complicated as far as, you know, getting the cycles to work out for you. .46 is pretty decent there. The world record time for that level is 43.5. And since, you know, we were doing a completely different, much safer route, that's still a pretty decent time. That'll help us recover a little bit of what we lost earlier on. So we do still have that green sparks. We've got to be careful. Because we're basically taking green sparks into the most dangerous level in the game. Misty Bog is essentially agreed upon by everybody to be the hardest of the Spyro levels in terms of damage. And I am actually going to have to take an intentional damage at the beginning. The intentional damage will be to get me across the little pond and to the end of the level. Misty is very odd in the way that it's shaped, so that actually allows us to kind of basically go in a straight line, which is a real blessing for this level, compared to taking it in sort of like a curvy Y shape and having to go backwards. It would have been nice if that butterfly was the extra life. But we should have that coming up here pretty quickly. No, Spyro. Get your act together, buddy. Those stairs are always a little bit spooky. The good news is, in any percent NBS, we do not have to go through the hardest room of the game, which is in this level. It's right over there by that dragon you can see on the left. We will not have to do that because it is really not worth all the damage that you would take, you know, being in that room, compared to the gems that you get from it. Plus, it's kind of a dead end, very much out of the way. But that is actually where some other runs, like 80 Dragons, will finish. They will finish immediately after doing that room. But this has actually been a very smooth Misty. I would venture to say that this would have golded for me if I were running splits. So with Misty done, we've got a big roadblock out of the way of the run. We are coming up though on treetops. If you played Spyro, you know, as a kid or casually ever, you probably remember treetops as being very confusing, which is fair. Treetops is essentially kind of like a labyrinth puzzle. It's a bunch of platforms in the air that you have to supercharge across in a certain order in order to figure out how to get out to this dragon that's just a million light years away. But thankfully, because we can abuse how a supercharge functions, we can avoid doing that big long puzzle and charging like all the way around the level from platform to platform. The principle is that if you can get Spyro's collision to kind of get hooked on a piece of the environment, you can slow down his momentum when he supercharges without actually losing the supercharge. And that slowdown is enough to let you make a very sharp turn that will take you basically from the beginning of the puzzle straight to the end. Because thankfully the puzzle starts and ends in basically the same spot. So that puzzle is going to be right here. We'll grab the supercharge, kill our momentum on that building, and make this very sharp turn. That's not the only supercharge thing we're going to have to do in this level. The next one is significantly harder. And the principle behind that one is that if Spyro is on one supercharge, he goes a certain speed, but if he picks up a second supercharge, he goes even faster. So I am going to try to come off of a supercharge and do a very tight, very precise turn to land on the same supercharge again to get that doubled up supercharge without having to, once again, you know, charge all the way through the level to pick up more than one. And remember, we are going to need 50 dragons to leave this world. We're currently at 49, and we're going to get one from the boss, so we are on track. Alright, so let's see if I can get this to work. Yeah, alright. First try. I don't want to hit that chicken because I believe the next life that I get, or the next butterfly that I get, is going to be that extra life. And I want to save that for the boss. So I would really rather not hit chickens before then. So Metalhead here is the boss. It's going to be the final level that we do in this world. Metalhead is genuinely hard. He can kill a lot of runs. He's got some RNG factors that make him challenging as far as being able to beat him. It's easy for him to hit you because he attacks quickly. But the good news is some of his attacks can actually destroy the pylons that are protecting him so that you don't have to destroy them yourself. So you can kind of, you know, seal his own fate if you can get him to aim in a lucky way. You'll also see that I'm bonking upstairs, which is intentional. When Spyro hits his face on something, he doesn't have to fall all the way to the ground before he jumps again. So it's faster to bonk and then jump in midair than it is to very slowly, you know, take the stairs one by one. Alright, turns out we're not actually even going to need that extra life, which is a good place to be. So we have got to destroy these pylons that are green. If they're red, we'll take damage when we run into them. Metalhead there was actually kind enough to shoot the one that was left. His laser hit the one that I couldn't hit. And so he sped that up a little bit. Nice RNG on that I was able to just, you know, charge through those sort of in order without them being red. So that was a fairly speedy boss. Spyro, buddy, I'm gonna need you to take these corners. There we go. So we'll pick up just a couple more gems on the way out of Beastmakers, but we've gotten those 50 dragons. That's all that the balloonist needed. And so we'll be on our way. We want to come out of Beastmakers with 5150 in gems, sort of, you know, ideally. I actually think that we're going to come out a little bit ahead of that, which is awesome. And we did also get a nice little bit of gameplay there where that the top of that gem chest went and destroyed the enemy and let the 10 gem home into me, so I didn't need to go take care of him myself.
Are you ready to go, Spyro?
Did not want to stay here. You know, menuing. The bane of most speedrunners' existence, right? So yeah, we are well ahead of 5150. That's a great place to be. Always better to be over-gemmed than under-gemmed. The balloonist for Dreamweavers, which is the final world before the boss, is going to ask for 6,000 gems. So we want to be as close to that 6,000 as possible. I am not going to complain, you know, about having an extra 30. Almost 40. What that will do for us is allow us to take a slightly different route in the boss level. And we'll pick up a couple less gems. And save a little bit of time. I got smooshed. So there's a guy in the middle who keeps shooting this cannon that's turning these things from big to small. I'm gonna go take control of that cannon. Number one, because I just don't want to deal with that guy anymore. And number two, because I want to change some of the enemies myself. So that we can reach the flight level for this world. flights are going to give us that tasty 300 gems. And with these two guys made small, we're going to be able to charge through. And they're worth 10 each, which is a pretty decent number for just two little enemies. Buddy. Buddy. Come on. Thank you. Icy can be a little bit challenging because we're working with more of those lighthouses that we saw in Night Flight. They're not always super responsive to Spyro's flame, so you can sometimes just flame them and they're just like, nah, I don't feel like it. And we do have a little bit of a tight cycle to work with here, so we do want these to light as soon as possible. We don't want to have to turn back around for them. Alright, that's looking pretty decent. This last one can be a little bit of a booger, but, you know, we got it. No biggie. Of the flights, this one is definitely one of the most challenging because it can be very hard to track down these trains if you happen to miss them as they're going by. And at least for the first time that you go through these levels, you are on a time limit, and you will fail if you run out of time. Sub 1 on Icy is pretty decent. I will definitely take that. So we got our 300 gems, and we're going to be coming into Jacques with basically exactly 5,700. That makes the math very easy. Because Jacques, the boss, is the final level that we're going to do before we leave this world. And we get 175 gems from the boss himself. So that makes it very easy math to, you know, figure out how many gems we need from the rest of the level. We can basically assume that we're at 5,700. If anybody would like to do the exact math, that would be welcome, but we don't need it. You're supposed to hit both of those guys to make this cake go up extra tall. I'm not going to do that because it is possible to make these jumps without two-tier cake. Now this platform up here with the whirlwind on it doesn't actually, like, exist, so we can totally just charge right into it and go through it. The skill point was for not getting hit by the boss. As long as you're just charging towards him real fast, you're probably not gonna get hit, so that's not super rare. Yeah, okay, so we're over 6,000. That's exactly what we needed. This balloonist is going to ask for 6,000. Technically, you know, we didn't have to go over before the boss and grab those couple chests on the right, but I did just to be safe. You know, we don't want to have to enter a completely separate level just for a couple gems. And so now we are going to Nasty's world. This is the final world. We're, you know, pursuing the boss, Nasty Nork, so this is where he lives. Nothing matters anymore. Gems, dragons, eggs, nothing matters. The only thing that matters is getting to the end of each of Nasty's worlds. You know, the levels within his worlds. And actually, we're going to talk to this dragon here in a second who's going to tell us exactly that. We're just not, you know, gonna get to see it. So we're just trying to get to the return home portal. I cannot exit levels anymore by just going into the start menu. But we do not care about gems anymore. We're just trying to get to Nork as fast as we can. And so without having to pick up gems, you know, we're literally just going to be bouncing off platforms in the most convenient way to sneak our way around corners and just get right to the end as fast as possible. The enemies can kind of get in the way a little bit. These particular enemies are a little bit hard to get around, so I am probably going to take an intentional damage on this big thick guy up here. This guy. He smooshed me. It was impossible to see, but he smooshed me. Because otherwise I'd have to flame his TNT barrel and wait for it to explode, you know, or I could just take the damage. So that is one return home portal. We've got one more level, and then we've got Nasty Nork himself. The challenge in Twilight Harbor here is that all of these enemies have guns. They used to shoot, like, in the PlayStation 1 version, they used to shoot what looked like Doritos. But now they shoot kind of Splatoon-like jelly. And if they hit you with that, it'll send you real far back. This entire level is basically on a pier, so if you get hit, you're going to go into the water, and you're basically guaranteed to take a death. It's very hard to get back out of the water. So we definitely want to take care of these guys as fast as we can. Don't need the dragon, so we're not going to spend the time on him. Sorry, buddy. Now this dragon is standing in the way of the supercharge, but the good news is there's a small space in between his wings that we can just kind of squeak through if we do it right. And so we'll take the supercharge the rest of the way to the end of the level. And hopefully we won't supercharge off the end. So that has fulfilled the criteria. That has triggered Nasty Nork's boss portal to open. The dragon head is now open over here. And we will confront the big bad boss, Nasty Nork, who turned all of the dragons into crystal. He's protected by two little green thieves. We've never seen green thieves before, but they're even faster than the blue ones. They are super fast. So we're going to need to just peek around a corner real quick and get them right as they start moving, or they're definitely going to get away. And they each have a key. And those keys are going to unlock, you know, successive parts of the level to give us access to Nasty Nork. So we'll need to take care of the thieves first. Meanwhile, Nasty is, you know, shooting at me. But we got both of those key thieves essentially at the earliest opportunity. That was just about as good as it could have gone. So that's great. No matter what we do, we can't catch Nasty early. So it's actually important to stay away from him. He's got a huge hitbox around his body. And if you run into it, down you go into the purple goo, whatever this is, on the floor. And if you fall in the purple goo, that's it. You have to start the entire thing over again, thieves and all. So we definitely don't want to do that. I guess Nasty's too good for purple goo, so his actual room over here has real lava. Alright, so timing is going to stop here when we toast Nork. Time. I didn't really give you too much warning, sorry there. It's no worries, because remember, this category is timed on in-game time. So we will check that here in just a second and see where we ended up. .3003, that is superbly close to a sub 30, which I would have been, super stoked to have in a marathon. So I'm really happy with this time, and I hope that you all enjoyed it. That was Spyro the Dragon, any percent no balloonist skip. If Spyro interests you, we've got a very friendly Discord and a ton of other categories, glitched and not glitched. So we've got a little bit of, stuff for everybody. Thanks for having me, and don't forget to donate to a great cause.
Thank you very much, SableDragonRook. That was a great run. Thoroughly enjoyed watching that. Everyone, up next, we have a small intermission while we set up the next run, and I'm sure you'll all enjoy this next run. Came out on Switch. It's Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Funky Mode, any percent, no death abuse. That's coming up right after this break.